So my name is Hal Cameron. I'm from Beardy's and Okemasis Cree Nation, and for the better part of the last 3 years, I've been an elected councilman for my nation, and on some of the side gigs would be an aspiring cook, an artist. What else? Helping to shape the mind of warriors and the
Oh,
gathering
yeah.
our warriors stuff.
Yeah.
That's been fun to sit with them and to shape what that's turned out to be.
Right.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Thanks for having me out on that.
Yeah,
That was the longest I've ever spoke at one time, I think.
yeah. You did good, man.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you surprised me too. I was like, who's this? Who's this beautiful butterfly breaking out of this cocoon right in front of my very own eyes?
Oh, man. Yeah. It was a cool opportunity,
Man.
and something I'm grateful for because it is something I want to get better at.
Hmm.
Um, Something it felt good,
Hmm.
like, even though I don't know if you could tell, but like I was having conversations in my own head while I was up there, like how blunt do I want to
It
be
wasn't that
here?
noticeable.
Yeah, good. Because the lucky thing is that I talk slow and I pause lots already,
Mm,
so I can hide a lot of my
yeah,
stupidity behind that,
I need to learn that skill.
But the conference was awesome, man. The whole thing was really great.
Yeah, I think it was just, yeah, I'm really just grateful because like we tried to like push the envelope a little bit on like the kinds of conversation and the kind of discussions that we wanted to begin. Like there's some pretty touchy ones when we talked about like masculinity and two spirit, and it made some people uncomfortable. We got some feedback like that some people just weren't ready for it,
Right.
but it's not that's not up to us. There's a lot of us who are, and we're just, yeah, that journey's there. So
Right. So then for how has being on council been these last 3 years?
yeah, so that's been a challenge, because my definition of leadership, um it doesn't quite align with being a politician. It's
Mm,
different, and I've noticed the culture around leadership has always been it's been molded into something that I don't quite agree with. And so being on leadership back home and having to navigate a very Western way of thinking and governing was really challenging because I had to also keep in check what put me in that position in the first place, why the people put me in that position in the first place. And was because of who I was in that foundation and my integrity. And so having to almost like walk two roads there and try to
mhm,
navigate through both was a challenge. But at the very core of it, I feel like because my understanding of leadership and I guess that service was instilled in me at such a young age, and especially when it comes to like governing in your own nation, it some people say it's really difficult, and I guess in some aspect it is difficult to govern in your own nation because your own people are the worst critics. but I never really found that to be in the forefront because I've always had this sense of love and care for my people, my home, our land. And so I always found that area like easy to stay grounded in it. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. It was a learning curve at some points. We inherited a lot of tough tasks, but as a team, we managed it well. So yeah, I was really fortunate to have been given that opportunity.
I, when people say things are difficult, it's like such an interesting word to me because I think people say that with like this. It's like they're implying that it can be avoided. Like
Mm,
difficult can be avoided.
mm-hmm,
But whether you do it or don't do it, it's going to be difficult, you
mm,
know? So it's like difficult is coming your way in your life no matter what. So, like, if you lead well, that's difficult. But not having good leaders and living through that is also difficult,
mm,
you know? So, like, difficult is coming.
yeah, yeah,
You just get to choose which difficult you are going to do,
yeah,
you know, whether, you know, in every area. So it's
mm,
just like difficult is just part of life.
yeah, yeah,
But people talk about it like you can avoid difficult.
mm, yeah,
So it's always interesting to me people's like how they view difficult.
mm.
Because then they'll tell me something else that's going on in their life, and I'm like, well, that sounds difficult, and that's just because you avoided this difficult, you know. So I think I guess for you, if you had to define it, what is leadership? Like, what is your view of what leadership is?
So my definition of leadership would be like right away when I think about leadership, it's always service because that's what I was shown. Service and putting this task or these people or this I don't know what else how else you want to call it, but ahead of you and you kind of just kind of supporting it along the way. And so that's what I think about in service. But also, in addition to that, it's also stepping forward first, especially in difficult times, and having the awareness to either be that sense of peace or sense of calm when things are chaotic, or having the ability to not let emotion cloud judgment or to speak or respond to something with or because of emotion or let emotion drive a response and being able to be collected and calm and still be able to maintain some type of concise stance to kind of continue moving things forward. That's kind of how I understand leadership to be.
Hmm. So now you're running for chief.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? What made
Mm,
that something that you thought about and now something that might become a reality?
yeah. So I guess one of the main factors that encouraged me to run for chief was it wasn't self-sought. It was the support from others to share their opinion on the matter, to be approached and be like, "You're a good leader," or "We're proud of you for, your vision or your ability to bring the people back down to calm when situations arose where it was really chaotic, or um, and just having that support and those very encouraging words of like, you make a good leader. It was, I just feel like it was the next step. I'm always looking on ways to just move forward.
Mm.
And I've never been in the mindset that you need to be in an elected position in order to be a leader. I don't know if I've shared that with you before, but that's what my late dad used to say. It's like, you don't have to be elected in order to be a leader for your people. And that always rang true with me. And I was, holy man, that had to have been like 15 years ago or something, or even no, way more longer than that. But like, that's how long that word, the phrase, that term has stuck with me. And so in saying that, me wanting to think bigger, to have more meaningful conversations, to address needs that in these last 3 years I've witnessed aren't being met, or that, I don't know, I just have this ability to want to step into those circles to have a bigger conversation, or say what needs to be said, or hold people accountable, and just have bigger and more important discussions. That the way my brain works, it just was an I felt like it was just a natural progression.
Yeah, I feel like you like when I think of you, this might be surprising, but it's all good things. But yeah, you're somebody who leads, but you're also somebody who like, you're outspoken, but in like a kind way.
Mm,
You know, like you're able to say things truthfully that might not be what people want to hear, but the way you say it, because I know you and know that you're speaking from your heart, that I know it's with good intention.
mm,
And I think that's a very like for you it's natural and it's hard to learn that. I've tried and it's like I'm just blunt.
mm,
And sometimes I can't put my heart in there.
mm,
And unless you really know me, it's like, is he being mean or is he? Whereas for you, it's just like it comes off kind and it comes off like you want the best for who you're saying it to.
mm.
And I don't think I know many people who do that like naturally.
Mm.
So
Appreciate
yeah, I guess like, have you always been like that? Or do you know you're like that for one? And for two, have you always been like that?
Yeah, so like, I'm aware of how I say things, and I'm just mindful of what it is that I'm trying to get across. And I I might like even just connect that to like the cultural upbringing, and I being raised in that, and being in spaces where like I'm surrounded by elders and learning from them. Like, I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but like my late dad used to serve in our nation as a ceremony keeper, or as cultural person helping in the nation, and he used to just bring us along,
Mm.
and we used to, him being a fluent speaker or sitting with the old men, we would be forced to sit there and just be immersed in watching, them tell stories or have conversations and it was a lot of listening and being shown that these men who are now passed on would be able to sit there amongst each other and sit and listen, and then allow someone to speak or whatever, and then eventually, like, when it came turn for one of them to speak or the next person, they all were given this opportunity to voice themselves, and it was always done in a manner that when they spoke, it wasn't just to talk. It was actually of there's a reason or there's something to take away from it. And I think tying that also back to our culture and our worldview is being mindful of what you speak, because your words are very powerful. And if you can use them to pray for something really, really good, you could also speak something really, really bad. And you don't want any harm to come to others. And that's why I feel like I'm really mindful of how I say things, or but like what you mentioned of like I've never been this person to be deliberately mean or to try to wish harm on someone, even no matter the circumstances, or if someone did me wrong.
Mm,
There, there's always this willingness to show respect, and so yeah, I guess it's always been just kind of present, but it's just like that's how I was molded.
right.
Yeah, and I still carry that even today. Yeah, even in difficult, there's some difficult times where I've
Yeah.
had to like really be mindful. But when you're working in a capacity of like leadership, when you're addressing things on a nation level,
Mm,
it's like you have to be mindful of everyone. Not saying like to try and say the right thing, but more so like out of care for everyone,
mhm,
I want to make sure that what I'm saying is for something. It's not just to hear myself talk or just to, throw out empty words.
right.
Mm,
Yeah, because I think even like even if you're going against something, if you're going against somebody, you still say it in a respectful way,
mm,
you know? Even if you don't agree with what they're saying or you don't agree with their actions, you're still gonna say it in a kind way.
mm,
You're not gonna be like, you piece of whatever,
yeah, yeah,
You're gonna say it in a way that they think or maybe they reflect
mm,
too,
yeah,
you know? Um, so with that, like with your definition of leadership and then your upbringing, like what makes you think that leadership is something that you're capable of, at that level?
mm. So I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, but it's like because of the things that I've went through personally, or the things that I was shown and taught, and this foundation that was set. I feel like I've always been, in some way, shape, or form, an opportunity to lead would present itself. And if there was no one stepping up, I just had this urge to know that that was the time to step up.
Mm,
And in doing so, I never ever felt like I was ready in those moments, but it's like I just had that feeling that it was time to step up, even if that meant standing alone. And I think in that sense, that gives so much inspiration to others to give themselves almost permission to do the same. And I think in all those leadership capacities, to know that I've always taken that had that ability and that understanding to step up when needed, kind of almost gives myself permission to know that
Right.
I'm ready for this too. And yeah.
I think that's like that self belief. You know, it's like sometimes you like prove it to yourself enough times that you actually start believing in yourself.
Mm,
You know, like at the beginning, it's like you're like looking around, no one else is stepping up, and you're like, okay, maybe I just got to do this because somebody has to do it, and then maybe you do it well or you do it like not bad, you know, and then it happens again, and then you do it a little bit better, and then you do it really well, and now you kind of have like some proof for yourself, you know, not proof necessarily to other people, but like it gives you that self belief, you know, like okay, I am competent, I am like capable of some of these things that like I had no idea before,
mm,
you know?
yeah. Yeah, I think I remember being really scared and really nervous. Like even today, like I felt really nervous.
Mm,
Like I haven't felt those kind of nerves in a long time. But in all my experience, I understand where that nervousness comes from. And it's not out of a place of fear or self doubt. It's out of this place of care. I know I care a lot about this one thing. And when it comes to like leadership in this context of like putting my name forward to run for chief of my nation, it's like that makes me nervous, but in the sense that I really care about the well-being of my people and the the direction that we want to go, and then also like also and added to that is a little bit of like this new era, this new generation that we're seeing, and like yeah, like being the first in our generation to be in this position and this opportunity to lead, that's a big task, it's a big responsibility, but eventually along the way someone's going to have to. And if we're looking at the trends of when those opportunities presented themselves, this falls in alignment to that, where it called to me to have to step up, and I recognize it, and I'm yeah not gonna shy away from it.
mm. You feel like you're gonna be nervous until it's final?
Um, no, I I already feel this sense of calm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was just in that little bit of moment because it's always when you're stepping into something new and unknown territory. That first step is always the I guess the most hectic. But once you're in it, you're like, this is just like
Mm.
every other time. Yeah,
Do you remember the moment you for sure decided this is you're gonna do this?
I don't know. Like I think I always knew that at some point this was where I was being led to, and not to bring anything spiritual into that, but it's the way my brain works. Is like I just try to enjoy life, experience life, and try to be present in moments. And just allow things to align the way that they need to. This is
Mm.
one of those times. And so, yeah, I guess in the past, I've always thought of, you know, if this would be for me. And I think it was just through that support and that those reassuring words from people in my nation who kind of put the bug in my ear, I guess, where I was like, okay, I think you're just understand and listen to what people are saying and just go for it.
And now you're here.
And now I'm here. Yeah.
That's good. So I guess, you've done some quite a bit of being in leadership positions uh already,
Mm,
with being on council, even with running, like gathering of warriors.
mm.
you know, uh, Kind of when adversity does come up, how do you handle it? How do you face it? How do you, because I feel like, like when I think of like even a small, like a small business or a boxing gym or like a, a school, there's lots of adversity. There's always like, so a whole nation,
Mm.
being on council. That's a lot.
Yeah. So, like, so when it comes to adversity and the challenges faced, there were times where, you know, like, I don't know if I want to speak on examples, but I remember a moment where we were having a community meeting and there was this this disagreement and this chaos, and this individual was very emotional because they felt like their voice or their opportunity to try and voice themselves was suppressed, and in that it caused this outburst and really disrupted the the room and the environment in which we're in the, it really distracted from the main focal point of what we were doing there. And kind of like a snowball effect where people were, it was so abrupt, it was so in your face, these emotions, these words, the yelling, that people were then asking for the meeting to just be called and whatnot. And in that moment, I recognized that we could take that route, and it's valid. Some people can't handle conflict, but it's also an easy way out. It's the easy way to be dismissive of this conflict and totally do away with what the intention that was set out for us to do there. And I stood up, spoke to everyone about what had happened, and kind of gave that validation that, that made everyone feel uncomfortable and whatnot, but that it shouldn't take away from the importance of what we're trying to do. Change sometimes isn't easy, and it's going to cause, feelings of distrust or emotions or whatnot, all these things. And but that doesn't mean we quit. And I tied it back to our ability to persevere throughout history and all the difficult things that we faced, yet our people found it within themselves to just continue to push forward and persevere. And we've always been in that a people of surviving, and in that brought a sense of calm, and that kind of like brought the room back, and then presented, "Do you guys want to continue?" And sure enough, everyone was in agreement. But it just took that little bit of, stepping out
Mm.
and allowing, just addressing everything in the way that it is, but really pulling it down to, you know, I guess pulling us from the roots and just really showing that we're really grounded, and that even on the stormiest of days, those trees, they may sway, but man, they're rooted. And I think that was just kind of like a really metaphoric way of showing that, our perseverance. And so that's one example of, ability to like get through adversity, and that was just like the willingness just to step into it. Like, I've had to have difficult conversations throughout the last 3 years with people who I highly respect, people in other leadership capacities, had to try to hold people accountable for the well-being of our people. And sometimes that left me standing alone and receiving flack from it. But even in me trying to do so, it wasn't to be malicious or harmful or to be, yeah, just intentionally trying to cause someone hardship. It was always in service of my nation, you know?
Right.
And yeah, if you even look at the social issues that we receive back home or that we face back home, the drugs, gangs, violence, um, all those social issues that we're facing. We've even had to, hold my own family accountable and having to stand behind the decision, and that's putting the whole nation first before family. And, sometimes that comes with the job, but like that's what leadership is. It's like if I have to be held accountable to a certain standard, it's like that goes for everyone where we have to hold others accountable as well. Yeah. But then also trying to, in relation to the social issues that we found, not just be so black and white on a stance. Let's say for, drugs. Um, I know drugs are just what's the word? What I'm trying to think of the word of how people I don't know, they just my English doesn't quite come through sometimes. It's a coping mechanism. So sometimes the drugs are the coping mechanism for the trauma. And even though I don't agree with the action, I see the harm that it's doing.
Mm.
And, me, I live a drug and alcohol free life, and I have for, pretty much my whole life. And, but even though I have a certain stance on it, me as a leader, I've even still had to see these people as us, as our nation, as our membership. And so still having that understanding and that compassion to want to support them, because tossing them aside, shunning them out, that's an easy solution,
Right.
but you're not building a nation, you know? And so we've had to create solutions where we've created a whole support network. We call it
Mhm.
Sitwascatuin, where those key players, whether it's prevention, child family service, mental health, social assistance, or whatnot, all these key players help create a plan or assist the individuals going through it with their own recovery plan to be accountable to give them that opportunity to feel like they're still being supported and give this opportunity for them to be a part of the community again, and in doing so foster that rehabilitation, that reconciliation with those who are they may be harming or whatnot. And so like those are like the challenges that we face and the adversity that we've had to like navigate through. And just for a couple of quick examples.
It's like it's pretty like when you were talking about that meeting, because I think a lot of times people focus, like sometimes when there's different ideas in a room, people forget about the problem.
Mm,
They stop attacking the problem and they just start attacking each other.
mm,
So it's like the first thing that came to mind when you were sharing how you kind of brought them back, to be like, we're a team, we're
mm,
a community, we're together in this.
mm,
That's like I think that's rare to be able to do that,
mm,
you know? Especially when, you know, probably one of the sides you're leaning more towards, so it's like instinct to be like, take that side,
mm,
So to be able to bring everyone back and be like, hey, let's attack the problem, not each other.
mm,
And we're a team and we've been fighting our whole lives. I think that's really cool
mm. Yeah.
because people get lost in it, get
Mhm.
lost in the moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was a lot of moving parts in that aspect where I recognized the uncomfortableness some people have when it comes to like shame or even like trauma around conflict, and then recognizing, there's this key little personal issue where this one person didn't feel they felt so small that they just felt the only thing they could do was first. And I can't I never want someone to feel that small, to feel that they're in that fight or flight mode,
Mm,
and to witness that. That was difficult because this individual who did it has a really strong voice, and to see them pushed to that level,
right.
uh, that's that's never what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it just takes that moment, right? Where you go over and then if nobody brings you back, now everything you said is disregarded,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
But then if you can bring it back, then it's like, okay, it was just a moment.
Mm,
And then like everything else can still be used. It's not disregarded. It's just that one moment was disregarded.
mm,
Right? Okay, we got heated for a second. Now we can come back,
yeah.
And it totally reverses it.
Mm,
Instead of everything just being thrown out, now it's just like that little point where it got heated gets thrown out and everything else is part of the conversation again,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think when you're talking about like serving your nation,
Mm,
right? And that comes first, no matter what. You're there to serve your nation as a whole. So when you think of the issues that are being faced, on your community and with people in the urban communities too, the cities, the towns, but belong to your community.
mm,
What are some of those things that are going on right now?
So like some of the things that I've recognized. So I think I kind of touched on a little bit like the drugs, the gangs, the violence, the substance abuse, but also like the unemployment. Those are like social factors that and mental health. That's a contributing factor. Like those are the key ones that I've recognized of the situation that it's continued for a long time. Um, but also like in the urban settings, we have people facing that and homelessness, but also too the the struggles of like the cost of living, being able to provide, enough food for your family, housing. So like those are like everyday struggles that our people are facing. And back home, or just in context, majority of our population live off reserve. So we have a bigger population in the city centers: Saskatoon, Prince Albert, Regina, Edmonton, Calgary, um, you know, and kind of spread out all over. Actually, there's some people in the states and whatnot, but for the most part, it's those local city centers. Um, and having we're finally in a position where, in a financial position, that we've started to try to address their needs as well. So there we have, own source revenue dollars that we get on an annual basis from leasing out our lands to farmers or whatnot, and or cattlemen for ranching. That dollars get put into our own source revenue. That's kind of like gives us this pot to be able to address needs in the on the nation. And predominantly when our funding streams don't service a specific need is when we tap into the foreign source revenue. And we've heard the time and time again where funding from the federal government is very limited in supporting anything that happens off reserve. And so that's forced us to have to be really creative and to try and adapt to meeting the needs of that population, that huge population that aren't being directly supported like the ones that are on reserve. And not saying even that's inadequately funded, but so trying to find solutions to support our membership who don't directly benefit on reserve, funding or supports. How do they receive benefits from the nation? How can we show them that they're still being supported? And so we pose that question, and membership came in and be like, we'd like an urban office, a place where we can go to feel like we're a part of home, that they can provide programs that we as leadership can go and work out of there to sit and have conversations with our members. And so when we learned that, we took it as a priority, and we ended up opening an urban office here in Saskatoon, which is really beneficial. And we have some really good staff who've taken it and really help shape a foster of like care for our membership in the city centers, especially here in Saskatoon. And so that's just like one little small piece on how we've taken to try and address needs here. They have I think they call it a cookum pantry, I think,
Mm,
where we have funding, we provide food, milk, things like that, and membership who are in need go there. And I was able to be working there one day and saw someone who I haven't seen in a while, shook their hand, asked them how they're doing, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm just here to get some support from the Cookums pantry," you know, and seeing them have that ability to come and grab some milk, it's like that felt really good that we're taking steps to addressing a need. But then, as we're continuing to progress, and I feel like we're in a good trend moving forward and being progressive and economic development wise and trying to, yeah, find new ventures, but like to try and create capacity to create jobs or create housing, or and we've discussed purchasing land, we've discussed building a hotel, or building low income housing for families or students, or things like that we're working towards. It's not like an overnight solution, but that those are the kind of things that we're working towards to try and meet those needs. And I think in addition to meeting on reserve and off reserve needs, on reserve where housing has always been a big issue, and we've talked about in the next 10 years we're planning on building like 130 some houses on reserve. And the the tricky thing about that I've recognized in the trend is that you can bring all the people home that we want, but if there's nothing for them to come home to, we're just setting ourselves up to fail, or just adding to the social issues that currently exist. And so, how can we build an economy for people back home to come home to and to be able to sustain themselves? And so, we prioritize. We heard membership when they're talking about we want a grocery store, so we did the work, put in, and now it's in the building stages of building a grocery store back home. And from if we're thinking about future and building off that, you know, that's going to create jobs. That's allowing our membership to have a safe place where they feel like they're going to get quality food to sustain themselves and their families. But if you take it one step further, when we take the step to grow our own produce and supply it in our own store, or our partner with our ranchers to provide the meat, and then we're like really asserting our own sovereignty, we're being self-sustaining. And I feel like that's the way that we're in a very fortunate position now, from where we were 20 years ago, to be in this position now, to be thinking that and to be able to see it, the light at the end of the tunnel, that's where we're going. So those are the things that I've recognized in terms of the challenges that we're facing and our membership are facing, on reserve, off reserve, but the the patience and the trust that needs to be built so that that vision can be supported. And it's almost like you have to buy into it.
Mhm.
Um, and it's kind of difficult because we live in a society where everything's so immediate in front of us and readily available. And so we almost have to reteach ourselves to think that way and to
Right.
slow things down. There's
Yeah.
a lot of moving parts to
Right.
a nation. Yeah, it's
Yeah, like that's a good point. Like building, you have to build the trust, right? Because some things take a while.
mm,
And now it's like, do you trust me that we're gonna get these things done?
mm, yeah.
Yeah, that's wild to think about.
Like a really good example that I thought about is um, not really paying attention to it, but once you think about it, you see the progress that we made. Was, for example, that young kid who was doing the power dancing at that Gathering Our Warriors um, men's conference,
Hmm.
to have, I think he was 15, have a 15-year-old living a sober lifestyle. expressing himself in the most authentic way possible through song and dance, talking about what this regalia, what this way of life as an Indigenous person means to him, and the authenticity and the truth behind the words that he was speaking really highlighted as a 15-year-old, our 15-year-old young men are at that stage. When I look back when I was 15, and it wasn't, it was like 20 years ago or so. Is that, yeah, holy man. um, I look back to that age, man, it was chaotic for me. And if you look back into the generation before me, if you looked at, my dad, okay, what were you doing at 15? And he was in residential school. He was, and just like the traumas and stuff that he had to deal with and face. So when we don't pay attention to it, we don't really see the progress we're making. But when you highlight something like that, you show that we're progressing. And sometimes we just need to take a step back and reflect and kind of take a bird's eye view of see where we're at and where we're going. And yeah, because it's really easy to be distracted when it comes to like pointing out things that are negative or things that are hurting our communities or whatnot. It's really easy, but it's always been a point of mine to try to also highlight the really good things that we
Mhm.
have because yeah, we're not progressing in response to or like yeah, we're not progressing for just out of thin air. There's things happening. There's good things happening along the way. Yeah.
It's tricky to see. It's almost like good is supposed to be good. So the bad or the negative, you just see it right away.
Mm,
You know, like if you do something and someone says "good job," it's like you don't really think anything of it because they should say "good job."
mm,
But if they don't say "good job," then you're like, "You never say good job." You know,
yeah.
it's like the negative just stands out,
Yeah.
and the good doesn't because it's supposed to be good.
Mm,
So that'll be fun.
yeah. Yeah.
um, then I guess how important is treaty when leading a nation?
So when I think of treaty, the importance that it plays in this day and age is obviously people don't have the education or knowledge behind the importance of it and the significance of it because it's actually allowed Canada to exist. It's actually allowed people to be able to come here, build a life, and to thrive from wherever you come from. And that was done through that sacred relationship, that agreement that was made between Indigenous people and the Crown. And when I think about the importance of treaty, there there hasn't been a lot of, I guess, more recently now that there's this more of a dialogue when it comes to you know acknowledging parts of treaty or the significance of it. But for a long time there wasn't, and you started to see that it was used as a tool or a weapon to allow one party to benefit way more than the other. And there was all a lot of like control and ownership and greed. But from a First Nations perspective, because of the manner in which it was agreed upon through prayer, through ceremony, that is tied to the highest point of who we are, and we hold it in the highest regard. And as leaders of a nation or chiefs of a nation advocating for treaty and inherent rights and making sure that we're not relinquishing pieces of our treaty. We're not, selling parts of our treaty or our rights, but making sure that the spirit and intent of why our ancestors did it is being acknowledged and respected. And um yeah, there's so much knowledge and understanding when it comes to treaty. I don't profess to know it all because it's a lifelong journey to gather that. But from the times where I've been privileged to sit with elders, to sit with knowledge keepers who give this deeper understanding, it inspires me to take on that fight. To I think my uncle AJ said it really well, to be more aggressive in our fight to uphold treaty. And I guess as a young leader, my eagerness, my willingness to to pick up and carry on, and even just pick up and carry on that work that's, people have laid the foundation for us since the signing of treaty, to be able to be in a position to, pick up that work and carry it forward. It's like, so feel so honored to have the opportunity. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just because you're in leadership that you should be taking on that fight. It should be, I'd love to be able to inspire it to give into the context of our generation and those coming, that this treaty has a place in our lives still, and that it's not just, collecting $5 a year, or, getting coverage for a certain medical procedure, or, it's much bigger. And yeah, we can probably go and talk on and on about even like the natural resources aspect, and, the right to education. And there's so many, this vast amount of knowledge and um, discussion points that could be talked about. But from the aspect of the importance of treaty, it's like, I feel like as a leader, it has to be one of the main important reasons of how you're shaping your governance and your how you're moving forward. Because without it, all these other things don't exist. If this falls, or if we allow it to be diminished and squashed, and from a spiritual context, I don't think man is powerful enough to break that, because it was done in a sacred manner. But for those people who have used it in a context that we're going to lose it, we it just gives us this light of importance and hope that we're carrying it forward, especially from the younger generations. Yeah.
What do you do when there's two sides looking at the treaty from different angles? Because I feel like that's when any document, is like the interpretation. They're trying to interpret it
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
benefit them,
Yeah.
you know? So you're looking at it from these two angles, whereas some people are looking at it for what it says, and then other people are looking at it and like trying to pick it apart
Mm,
to change what it says,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
What do you do?
So in that context, I feel like, how can you have a treaty that is signed between two nations or two parties and have it only interpreted in one way. I feel that that just gives light to just how that's not a true treaty.
Right.
The written treaty as it's written, in if you think about in a Nehiomamtanichigan, so like a Cree person perspective, Cree way of thinking, there are concepts in the written treaty that we didn't have.
Right.
Ownership of land, you know, surrendering of land, you know, but our understanding, the the foresight of our ancestors to even include in the treaty, as long as the sunshine, grass grows, rivers flow, talks about, their understanding of that means forever, so that, you know they were thinking like, you can't go without any of those things, and if you do, then the world's not going to exist. And so, yeah, from my understanding, it's been skewed from the beginning, because at the time signing of treaty, we were an oral people. We told stories, we told our history, you know, we passed down things orally. And so to have a and throughout history being taught that, this Treaty 6 document that was signed is the law, or is the only true way of understanding the treaty. How can you call that a just process, or a
Yeah.
just, like, treaty? Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes me think like, and this might be oversimplified, but it makes me think of like having a conversation over text message,
Mhm,
between two people who fully understand the language.
mhm,
We misinterpret all the time,
mhm,
even just like the tone of it.
mhm.
The what you
Yeah.
actually one person is like, it's like that video that's online, right? The one person's just chill laughing like and the other
Oh,
person's
yeah.
just mad reading
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah.
just like, so imagine that, but one half doesn't even understand this way of communication,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Yeah, that's tough.
yeah. Yeah, so this year is gonna be really important because it's Treaty 150, 150 years 150 years since the signing of treaty this August.
Mm.
And, so I think it's gonna be a really crucial time to, I don't wanna say reevaluate, but to have those conversations again, to, you know, get Canada. And I don't know why we're having conversations with Canada, because at the time we didn't sign it with Canada, we signed it with the Crown, but all the bureaucratic stuff is. But anyway,
Mm.
um, it's gonna be a really important time to try and revisit those discussions, and to, assess where we're at and how we can move forward. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, before we wrap this up, I just want to finish off by saying like, like I feel like, if you win this, going back to what we were talking about before, like earning that trust, I feel like you are going to be able to do that.
Hmm.
I feel like, just like in a roundabout way, how we were talking at the beginning of this, of like self belief. You stepped up, then you stepped up again, and then eventually you gave yourself enough proof to believe in yourself.
Hmm.
I feel like that's what you will do for your nation.
Hmm.
You will build the trust. You will give everyone proof slowly, get these wins, get these things done. And then eventually, that trust will be earned,
Mm.
because like I said, man, you are a very good dude, man. You've
Thank you.
become a really good friend of mine and my wife's.
Mm,
And yeah, man, I can't see anyone who deserves something like this more than you,
mm,
who has built himself to become somebody to lead a nation.
mm,
To me, you are that person.
mm.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, if there's anything else you want to add before we end this.
No, I guess I'm really appreciative of your, I guess, your support and your friendship over the last, I guess, how many years that we've known each other. But it's because of people like you, mm, Demi, and you know, uh, the circle of friends who, I've been really blessed to have been introduced to because of you, have really assisted in me to find this purpose, this calling, and this strength to do important work, and whatever that means, whether it's around leadership, whether it's around, wellness, mental health, you know art, language, whatever. It's like it's all those little pieces that have assisted in building me to be this version of myself right now. And that is what I want to, in honor of that, that's why I want to share it with others, to give them what you've been able to share with me. Yeah. So that they can share their gifts. It's just this really bigger picture. And I see this like goodness just rippling out, and just kind of like wrapping our nation and people together. It's such a beautiful feeling. That's the hope. Yeah.
Mhm. That's awesome, man.
Mm,
Well, I'm proud of you.
mm,
However this goes, man,
Yep.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
So, thanks for coming out.
Thanks, bro.